Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm in the kitchen today and I'm very excited to cook A5 grade Wagyu steak, aka the most expensive steak in the world, at home, and I'm gonna do my absolute best to do this piece of beauty justice. Let's give it a go. Wagyu beef is a type of beef known for its marbling, tenderness and rich flavor. The term Wagyu means Japanese cow and refers to several different breeds of cattle that are native to Japan. Wagyu cattle were first introduced to Japan in the 2nd century as draft animals, and the first breed of Wagyu cattle, the Tajima strain, was developed in the Hyogo prefecture, which is where Kobe beef comes from. Kobe, Matsusaka, and Omi beef have historically been known to make up the big 3 Wagyu regions of Japan, producing the most prestigious Wagyu beef in the world. Wagyu beef is graded based on its quality, with the highest grade being A5. The grading system takes into account factors like marbling, color, texture, and fat quality, and it ranges from C1 to A5, with A5 being the best of the best. To achieve the highest quality, Wagyu cattle are typically raised in a very controlled environment, with a diet that includes grass, hay, and grains. Many Wagyu farmers also give their cattle beer and sake, and some even massage the animals to help distribute the fat and promote even marbling. Okay, so we're taking our Wagyu out of the packaging and patting it dry. We pat it dry, get all the moisture out. Really importantly, this has been sitting out the fridge for a few hours because you don't want to cook it from really cold. You want it to be room temperature. It's basically much softer and ready for frying, and the fat is nice and soft before we partition it. Now we've patted it dry. Wow, that's fantastic. Taking it out the packaging, and the first thing I'm going to do is partition it, because Wagyu is very, very rich. It's very fatty. Nat and I are not going to have this whole thing. So this is 550 grams. So we're going to go half, and then the other half I'm going to freeze and save it for a special occasion. So what I'm going to do is literally just cut it down the middle, and then we're going to partition it in small pieces that you then fry up in the pan so that you get that really nice crust on a lot of different pieces. An interesting fact is that Wagyu beef and Kobe beef are often used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. And not every piece of Kobe beef is actually Wagyu. So Wagyu is the grading that is high grade and means it's like the most expensive cuts of meat in the world, whereas Kobe is just a region in Japan that happens to be one of the regions that produces a lot of Wagyu. But equally, you could just get a normal cow from Kobe and that just be Kobe beef and not Wagyu. So what I'm doing now is I'm trimming the fat off, and I'm actually going to keep this because one, we'll use that to grease the pan. You don't use anything else, so you just use a little bit of this to grease the pan before you fry it, and then you can always keep this to use for bases for sauces, or if you ever make roasted potatoes, it's fantastic. It's like an elevated version of duck fat or goose fat, I'd say. And then I am literally doing the same thing with the other half. Like I said, I'm only gonna make half of this today. The other half I will freeze. Yeah, I got my Wagyu steak here in London from Porterford Butchers. I've used them once before. I don't have any affiliation with them. The quality was fantastic. So far, I highly recommend them. Everything comes delivered fresh to your door in a refrigerated bag. Okay, so now I've partitioned all my meat. I am going to freeze half of it, as I say, and then I am going to pre-salt it, very important, and then we're gonna let it rest for a bit before we fry it. If you add the salt beforehand, it allows it to soak up some of the water, and that's what's gonna make the crust really, really crispy and crunchy on the outside, and then you're gonna have beautiful pink in the middle. So really important to pre-salt your steak before you cook it, not put it in and put salt on, that's wrong. And Natalie and I are going to allow ourselves to get more hungry by having some red wine. What are we having today, girl?
Cabernet Sauvignon.
So I'm just gonna chuck some of the fat in here. It can just render. And I'm gonna use that to grease the pan really nicely. And then in a second, you'll hear me putting the extractor on. And that's unfortunately a bit loud, but this is gonna smoke up the kitchen real bad. You don't put the steak in until the pan is properly hot, so I'm just gonna grease this a little, and then that's it. I'm gonna take the fat out, and I'm gonna keep this, like I said, for other uses. Cheers! Cooks itself the best when you have a little bit of red wine to help. And when I mean hot, it has to be hot. You're gonna see it smoke, it's gonna be piping. Just to talk a little bit about the cost of all this, as I said, this is probably the most expensive meal you'd ever cook at home. It's certainly the most expensive steak I've ever had and cooked at home. However, when you compare the cost of cooking Wagyu at home to what it would be if you bought it at a restaurant, it's still the fraction of the cost. And so for a very special occasion, and like I said, for us, it was meant to be for Mother's Day. Unfortunately, my mom got ill and couldn't come. For 550 grams, and I actually got it on an offer, I got it for 125 quid. Normally it would have been 140 with Porterford Butchers. That's right around the price you'd normally pay for such a piece of steak. If you compare it to 550 grams of just a normal steak at the supermarket, that would run you about £10 maybe. So it's more than 10x more expensive. Having said that, just a 100-gram portion, so 1/5 of this at a restaurant at a place like Roka or somewhere else in town will cost you like £50. So it is a lot more affordable to cook it at home. But I'm not suggesting you do this all the time because I know it's really expensive. And see, just like that, little interlude, we are ready. I hope you're ready for some smoke. And the best thing about this is, which people disagree on, is the smell. This smell just tastes like pure lush and fat. And now we watch it and stay very close to it because you don't want to fuck this up. That would be a very, very expensive mistake. I just burnt myself, but I'm just doing all the edges of the steak and then making sure that it's gotten seared from all the sides. And as you can see, I don't know if you can tell how much liquid is draining out. That's all the Wagyu fat, because remember, this is extremely rich and super high fat content. So you keep that, we keep that, and that's the best thing to use for a piece of fried bread in the morning, or as we will be using it as a sauce for rice on the side. So it depends on what you like. This could also be a great sauce for roasting potatoes. And now I am just going to turn this off. I'm going to wash my board and take this out to leave it to rest. Leaving it to rest, we'll slice it here in a bit. So the good news is some of these pieces will be more medium rare than others, which is quite nice because then you get the variation. And Natty and I really like it medium rare. And then letting it rest for a few minutes. All right, so our meat has now rested, and we're going to slice it now. I don't know if you can hear this. So that's what a crusty crust feels like. I just realized I don't have a fork. And then, can you see how rich and fatty that is? And it's pink in the middle. It's super rich, super fatty. We actually got this on Easter special. But we'll see. This looks amazing. Some generous servings here. Camera woman can enjoy. And then, here we go. There we have it. And traditionally, yeah, we serve it with some Japanese rice and some red wine. I'm gonna let you try the first bite, Nat. And as in Japan, always add like just big, coarse, flaky salt on the side of your plate so you can dip your meat into it. And it's funny because we prefer eating it differently. I eat it with chopsticks like in Japan, and Natalie has it with a knife and fork. And then, yeah, do you want to give it a go? So I don't know if you can see this. So you can really see the fibers of the fat running through the meat. It's much, much, much fattier than anything else. And then I normally dip it in some salt flakes, and I'll also have it with wasabi and soy sauce. And it's really hard to explain, but the texture of this, it is really melt in your mouth. So it's not like normal steak, which is why you can just eat it with chopsticks. It's not like steak that you have to chew on. And in my mind, it's actually a completely different category of steak. For me, if I had to explain what this tastes like, it tastes like butter that is flavored with steak. Very, very rich, very soft, very buttery. That's all that comes to mind for me. I don't know, Nats, what would you say?
The best part of the steak, but it's the whole steak.
There you go. All right, we will enjoy this now. Time lapse coming in 3, 2, 1. Did you give this to me, or was it
Oh,
for
yeah,
you?
yeah.
Were you being kind? Because this is the crusty bit. It's the best bit.
Crusty bit.
No, but look at this crusty bit.
Look at this crusty bit.
I think these are just fat. Maybe we shouldn't have these last two.
They are just fat, but the whole steak is just fat.
Yeah. Melt the oil. Smelts it enough? Because I don't want to burn it. Because that's the risky business. And now I'm just going to chuck it in there. Coat it with butter. And we're back for an epic taste test review. And I've not had either of these things before. This is the Oh My Banoffee.